Hi everyone. Okay. So this session is very meaningful for me because the question, what is a work art site, is rarely asked by archaeologists or addressed to them. So I'm very happy to take a part of it. I'm not studying the rock art site itself, but the site that exists in the archaeologist mind. So I'm going to define rock art sites. I'm not going to define rock art sites in the literal sense of place where rocks or walls bear engravings and paintings made by a human being. The main here is not to excavate the sites in order to excavate information about past population. What I propose today is to excavate scientific discourse in order to understand how work art sites have been perceived over the time within archaeology, how this perception has evolved, and how the very notion of rock art sites emerged. Therefore, my data will not come from the field, but from the discourses. So let me briefly introduce myself. Melanie, I've done it already. My name is Juliette. I'm in second year of master in degree in archaeology in University of Toulouse under the direction of Camille. So just to be clear about what is scientific discourses, even if I think everyone know what is it here, scientific discourses is the one which is produced within the framework of research activity aimed at proposing a theory based on observed facts and results derived from the scientific process, and intent for the construction of dissemination of knowledge to be known, to recognized by the scientific community. Scientific discourses must go through editorialization. In other words, it must be published. It is therefore through scientific publication that I propose to examine the status of work art and to explore how archaeology has regarded this from heritage. Publication are not the only contributors to the production of archaeological knowledge, but they remain the most accessible because of how widely they are disseminated. This is all the most true when unpublished documentation was not be inventoried, either digital or manually. This is the case for the region that I concern us here, the Karoo. The Karoo is a region that originally referred to the archaeological sequence extended discontinued across South Africa, which is particularly developed in South Africa in the Northern Cape. So this name was given for the region between the town of Kimberley and Calvina. This is a region with very semi-arid region, so we can say, and the art of the rock art of this region is related to later Stone Age hunter-gatherers in Southern Africa. There is open air sites located on Dolerit Ridge and Pre-Karoo glacial pavement. The imagery found there consists of engravings made by incision, engravings, and we have rock shelters or cave sites, which are far less common than in this region. This is feature painted art consisting in a monochrome and bichrome image in shade of red and white. There is 3 iconography in this region. A naturalistic figurative one, and largely non-figurative geometric tradition, both engraved and painted. And you have a third one with strictly engraved and depict post-contact themes like datas or machines. So this region is particularly interesting to study because the rock art found there is quite different from the other areas. Not only because it consists mainly of engravings, but also because the engravings are often very small and sometimes difficult to see. They are not large, highly realistic, and colorful paintings like others, like Drakensberg or Cederberg. Moreover, most of the sites are open-air sites, which are much harder to delimit spatially than scales or rock art work shelters. So I briefly outlined this type of rock art found in the Karoo, but our focus here is on publication, and we choose to concentrate on the publication deleting with 3 sites in the region because they are representative of archaeology research on rock art in Karoo, and because they correspond to very different types of rock art assemblage. The first one is a cave, so easy to delimitate spatially. It's Wonderwerk cave on the eastern flank of the Kuruman Mountains range. We find animals and geometric figure painted with fingers. The second one is Driekopseiland. Yeah, I don't put some image, but you have here. This no, not far that to Kimberley. This is an open-net site to extend across a large andesite pavement in the bed of the river. The impressive accumulation of engravings require us to consider all of them like together in a single assemblage. And the last one is Wildebeest Kuil, in a few kilometers west of Kimberley, and also an open site, but more difficult to define because there is 3 hills. He is in 3 hills. Based on the publication deleting with these 3 sites, I was able to obtain, knowing that there are roughly 6 of them, but I was only able to access 51 of them. I create an analytic grid from which I produce simple statistics and exploratory analysis, then allow me to highlight different chronological periods. Today, I will present only the first 2 because my time is limited and I have to be a little speeder. But please keep in mind that the farm work extends beyond this period I'm presenting today. During the first period, researchers are interested in rock art, but it was not yet an institutionalized field of study, and the notion of site had neither importance nor even exist. In contrast, during the second period, the study of rock art began to take shape, and the concept of a site as a group of graphic elements to be studied as a whole started to emerge. The publication from the first period are mainly non-scientific book, also from the early 20th century. Scientific articles and books begin to appear. Their structure is not formalized, meaning that do not follow the typical format of introduction, development, discussion, and conclusion found in the most contemporary scientific publication. These work are not subjective to scientific peer review. From the perspective of standard governing the curricular structure of academic writing, we can see that until the 1930, the structure remains free. In fact, the work was structure appears imposed in the sorry, 1840 and 90s, where travelogue their form is not imposed by scholarly norms, but rather results from the conventional way such travel narratives were composed. The authors of this period are Moffat, Twain, Stowe, Perringer, Burkitt, and Breuil. They were men who were not trained in archaeology, and some of them had no scientific training at all. Looking at their professions, we do see a few archaeologists begin in the 19th century. 20th century, but also practitioners from disciplines other than archaeology, as well as individuals which with not a scientific background whatever. There were therefore amateurs with an interest in rock art. During this period, archaeology is not yet truly an academic discipline. There is no formal training in archaeology, no university-level instruction, and the boundaries of what constitutes the archaeology field were still being defined. Rock art is therefore not considered as institutional archaeological object at this time, but rather a curiosity, a beautiful object that can be collected, picked up, and taken away to a private or isolated place. The notion of a site between this period at this period was not real usefulness. Indeed, during this period is even beneficial to do consider the rock art of given a place as a whole, as a single invisible identity. At this time, rock art is valued primarily for the aesthetic qualities. Attention is focused only on the panels and the most beautiful depiction. That are the most realistic, the most detailed and detailed, and the best preserved. They were the ones that people select and through to preserve by removing them from the place where they had been created or discovered. The site, as we understand today, could therefore be dismantled, and engravings from the same location could be sent to different museums. This is the case for certain engravings from Wildebeest Kuil that were sent to the British Museum and later identified as belonging to that site by Dora Fock in the 1917. So it is therefore anachronistic to speak of a site during this period. We often tend to view figure was such as Holub, those who removed a piece of rock art, as vandal, but we situate this action within the context of the time. These individuals did not perceive themselves as destroying an identity by removing panels, but because they didn't think of an engraving or a painting as belonging to an unified wall. Sorry. The second period, from the 1930, we have scientific publication with dominate the editorial landscape of Karoo rock art. The previous condom thematic structure gradually declines, leaving more room for scientific structure, and nevertheless remains informal in the 1960s. When the argumentative format, as we know it today, appears and becomes predominant. A small clarification, just to precise, for this period, unaware thematic structure no longer necessarily signal a lack of scientific rigor, but rather marks scientific works that adopt to structure for pedagogical purposes. During this period, impersonal initiation also emerged, whereas previously authors wrote in the first person of singular or plural. The form of the discourse increasingly becomes imposed or standardized. And by the late 1960s, it dominates. Commissioned work on rock art began to appear also. Voluntary writings still remain in the majority. This is also a period who marks the beginning of the publication with scientific peer review. The authors writing about Karoo during this period include Wilman, Malan, Van Rietlo, Power Clark, the Rodners, Slack, Wilcox, the Fox, Dutoy, and Cooks, with the exception. There are scientific and they're receive archaeological training before becoming professional archaeologistic. But the study of rock art in this period remains at personal initiative in times on weekends or something like this. As discourse of Karoo rock art become more formalized, research gradually begins to approach rock art as a coherent whole. Scholars increasingly take into account a larger proportion to the representation present at a given location, rather than focusing solely on the most beautiful depiction. From the 1960s, the notion of a site gains strength. The researchers begin to understand that a site constitutes an integrated whole that must be preserved as such. Removing individual panels is not longer acceptable because one must study the site in the entirety, examining all the representation it contains in order to hope to understand the intention, however is difficult, of the creator of the imagery. This period is also the period of naming the sites. To give an example, Wildebeest Kuil was named before Halfway House because of the nearby hotel, and now it have a real name. And just to be quick, a point at Wonderwerk, about Wonderwerk cave. The first excavation laid by Malan and Cook Wells considered what it like archaeology sites, but not like work art site. The work art was not studying. Yeah, like it was two different things, and rock art it is not institutionalized study. So to conclude, sorry for the time, work art is not an institutionalized object of study before the late 1960s. It is not considered an archaeological object at the very moment when it began to be institutionalized, when our scientific discourses on work art becomes more formalized. The notion of a site as a whole, as an entity was also begins to emerge and take shape. The rise of the concept of the site between these two periods led to a shift in conservation method. The practice of removing panels was progressively abandoned in favor of preserving representation in situ. The Karoo is somewhat distinctive rock art region that suffer from a certain institutional vacuum until 2014. No university center was located near the feed area, and the particular characteristic of the site of the rock art found there did not attract large number of researchers. There was, in a sense, a lack of interest. Moreover, the major intellectual shift in the 1980s, driven by David Lewis Williams and Patricia Vinicombe, who revolutionized the way rock art was understood, and who notably argued that the symbolic intentionally of rock art research reached the Karoo relatively late. This important stage in archaeology of Southern Africa took hold in Karoo only in the 21st century, notably through the work of David Morris, who inherited Lewis Williams' theoretical approach. Remember that I have presented only two periods, but archaeological research in the Karoo does not end in the 1960s. From the late 1970s and early 1980s onward, research on work art sites becomes polarized. Who major schools or tendency emerged, the very approach developed by Lewis Williams, centering shamanism, and we have the landscape archaeology, conceptual landscape archaeology that draws on natural science such as climatology, paleoenvironment, study, geomorphology, and other. With this new scientific approach comes a new way of conceptualizing rock art. It's a new status within archaeology, and necessarily the definition of what constitutes rock art sites evolves as well. So thank you for allowing me to participate. Just like you can see, I'm not fluent in English, so I'm going to ask you to translate the question.
Your English is very good, better than mine.
Yes, thank you, Juliette. Easy question. So with historical reading you did, seems like archaeologists started working on very small entities. Then they worked on a bit bigger entities, sites, and now they're playing with much bigger entities, landscape, or maybe places as well. So you see that this movement is like always stretching all the time on the edges. So where are we now? Did you study that thing as well? Or did you just study on the historical side, like the movements of you know what I mean? Ouais. En français? Oui. Du coup, premier, tu disais en gros, bah voilà, au début, tu as des toutes petites entités, on s'intéresse aux cartes, quoi, on s'intéresse à la gravure. Après, on passe à un intérêt qui est plutôt site. Là, on arrive à un intérêt où tu es encore plus large, place, le lieu, le paysage, comme tu dis. Du coup, est-ce que toi, tu as étudié les trucs plus récents? C'est ma question. Est-ce que tu as étudié cette élasticité de l'entité visée par les archéologues?
Not really, because my subject is not really on define what is a art site for the archaeologist. Is more like the place of the statue of rock art study in archaeology. So I have I've done how do you say? I have adapted my subject for the talk today, but this is not really what I am studying. So I'm going to reflect on it, think on it.
Another question? Yes.
Thanks for the talk. Maybe you're a bit rushed at the end, but I thought your last 2 decades in most of your graphs were the most interesting. Do you think that the trends in the 2000 to 2020s that you've got over there are going to continue entrenching, or is it just preliminary results that needs a little bit more unpacking? It's particularly that commercialization of the publications was a big statistic. The commission work that you had is just dominating the publications now in the last 2 decades. That's almost a globalization phenomenon that you're describing in that. Could you comment a little bit more about that? And overall, the sense of power, people speaking on behalf of power throughout from 1840s to today in this very niche field.
Décennies d'archéologie plus commerciale où il y a eu beaucoup actuel et où du coup il y aurait potentiellement un site qui serait intéressant en tout cas à étudier. Est-ce que toi tu as bossé là-dessus? Question.
Yes, my study is
Grossièrement. À peine sûr.
I'm studying until today the publication on these 3 sites, but I haven't the time to talk about it today. But we can speak later if you want. And you are what you are saying. It's true. That's more interesting to see what is a work art site for the in the. Last 20 years? Yeah. But I have to start to the beginning to present what I'm doing, I think.
Your topic goes up until now. It's still an ongoing process for the last 40 years. She's still analyzing, actually, the data for the last 40 years. That's the reason why she couldn't present today. Fair enough, sorry.
Another question? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for an interesting presentation on the scientific definitions, as is like titled in your presentation. I'm just wondering and curious, I would want to just take your view on how do these scientific definitions of rock art sites in Africa align or conflict with local knowledge systems and what challenges emerge as African communities negotiate heritage values in a changing socio-cultural landscape.
Des articles plutôt contemporains, est-ce que tu vois une prise en compte plus large de valeur patrimoniale de l'art plastique?
It's really not what I'm studying. I'm in archaeology and not in heritage studies, so I can't respond to this question, I think.
So my question sort of follows on from this, and you probably won't want to answer it, or possibly can, but it's maybe something to think about for either for this or for future. And it relates to, so it seems that from what you're saying, publications are becoming more scientific, more streamlined, more, more academic. So what I would wonder then is, what is beneficial about this or not beneficial? Is it beneficial or is it not beneficial? Who is it beneficial to? What might we be losing by it becoming like this, or what might we be gaining? I'm sure we're gaining a lot, but I wonder if we're losing, and I think this relates to what you're saying about local knowledge. Yeah, what might we be losing or what might we be gaining?
Et elle s'adresse à une communauté. Moins, enfin, ça n'a jamais.
Yes, so when over time when publication became more scientific, so it started talking to more to less people, because in the beginning it was more in some general journal, but in the end it became spatialized, and so the more turning in circle with themselves. So the idea of other kind of knowledge was more difficult to take into account as well. So during most of the 20th century, I mean, this was kind of a scientific bubble, because most of the people talking were white archaeologists. So also it was more complicated to get more voices into the play. But it started changing, as you say, 20 years ago, into 2000 or something. Well, in around 2000, because you had inclusion of other non-white archaeologists, and so it was more keen to introduce other voices into the archaeological discourse.
Last question.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question. And in your graph, you showed that there was a lot more studies in the last few years, in the early 2000s and so on. And I was wondering if you're looking into geographical distribution of where these publications are coming out from. Thank you.
Toi, tu as analysé la distribution géographique, la provenance géographique des écrits. Est-ce qu'ils viennent principalement de tel lieu ou de tel lieu, etc. Tu as fait une cartographie de production scientifique dans les 20 dernières années. Ouais, voilà.
Yes, I've done it.
Analyser les publics. Je vais parler des publics, de la destination.
Oui, I have localized the authors. I don't have the graphic here in English, but in the beginning, the authors were European and not South African. And the publication was addressed for to national, the first national public, and step by step, national, but European for the European continent, and step by step for the South African public, but just archaeology. Archaeologists, not for amateurs. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Juliette.